Well, look at the time. I'll try to keep this brief. After 28 years of peacock logos on much of what I own, it is my choice now to jump without a net into the great unknown, as I do for the first time in my 62 years. My biggest worry is for my country. The truth is, I'm not a liberal or a conservative. I'm an institutionalist. I believe in this place, and in my love of country, I yield to no one. The truth is, I'm not a liberal or a conservative. I'm an institutionalist.
The truth is, I'm not a liberal or a conservative. I'm an institutionalist.
And the top story in the U.S. tonight is the devastating evidence that Donald Trump supported the armed overthrow of the U.S. government.
The truth is, I'm not a liberal or a conservative. I'm an institutionalist.
Cheney closed the hearings by raising concerns about possible witness tampering by an unknown person.
The truth is, I'm not a liberal or a conservative. I'm an institutionalist.
And, multiple trips over there. We have lots of friends that deployed with us there. The Afghans have a special operations unit called the Commandos. We worked alongside them. Our interpreters are obviously from Afghanistan, so they live in Afghanistan, but they work for us. These people have security clearances. They love the idea of democracy and freedom. They love the idea of a free, independent Afghanistan. They want their daughters to be educated. And
the truth is, I'm not a liberal or a conservative. I'm an institutionalist.
Look, to be totally honest, if things are so bad, as you say, with the white working class, don't you want to get new Americans in who aren't going to be... I'm serious. You can make a case that this is going on too long and this is too crazy, probably, and I hope this thing isn't being, videotaped or ever shown anywhere. Whatever tiny, pathetic future I have is going to be totally collapsed. You can make a case that America has been great because every I think John Adams said this at the beginning, right? Basically, if you're in a free society, a capitalist society, after 2, 3, 4 generations of hard work, everyone becomes kind of decadent, lazy, spoiled, whatever. And then luckily, you have these waves of people coming in from Italy and Ireland and Russia and now Mexico who really want to work hard and really want to succeed and really want their kids to live better lives than them and aren't sort of clipping coupons or hoping that they can hang on. And meanwhile, we grew up as spoiled kids and so forth. So in that respect, I don't know why this moment is that different from the early 20th century or the mid-19th century.
Somebody else.
The truth is, I'm not a liberal or a conservative. I'm an institutionalist.
Man, I know what torture is. I've seen it in Africa. I've seen it in South America. I've seen it in the Middle East. I've seen it on I'm pushing 20 trips overseas in a military capacity. A handful of combat deployments, from looking for poachers, human traffickers, drug cartel, counter piracy, the things that I have done. Like, you want to talk about knowing intimately what torture is? I fucking know what torture is. Pouring water on somebody's face is not torture.
The truth is, I'm not a liberal or a conservative. I'm an institutionalist.
While the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th riot wants to know who organized the attack with particular focus on former President Trump, there are others who are focused on the still simmering question of who participated in it and why they participated. Were they motivated only by the false idea of a stolen election, or was there something deeper, something that won't pass as quickly as a single campaign cycle? Well, researchers at the University of Chicago have been looking into these questions, and they find evidence of a conflict here in America, a conflict smoldering underneath all the other conflicts, and it begins with a single fact. More than 90% of the people arrested for the attack on the Capitol were white. And the key characteristic, according to the researchers, uniting these attackers was not ideology or geography, but in fact race. Quote, they come from counties where the white share of the population is declining fastest.
The truth is, I'm not a liberal or a conservative. I'm an institutionalist.
Thank you. Trade is good. And in this ever-globalizing world, it needs to be embraced more than ever.
The truth is, I'm not a liberal or a conservative. I'm an institutionalist.
Boris Johnson's exit is the beginning of the end for Brexit. Britain has lost its third Prime Minister in just over 6 years after Boris Johnson announced he was stepping down. He was forced out of office following a succession of scandals, but his departure is also a setback for his Brexit project. Johnson was a key participant in the campaign for Britain to leave the European Union in 2016, and Brexit eventually helped propel him to the country's highest office. However, his chaotic 3 years in charge, during which he finalised the terms of Britain's departure, have brought home the costs of that decision.
The truth is, I'm not a liberal or a conservative. I'm an institutionalist.
Okay, here's a question. Let's say that we're 20 years into the future, we have brain transplant surgery. Let's say that I take your Rob's brain and I put it into a cis woman's body. Let's say that you wake up and you're like, this feels really wrong. I feel like I feel like a man and now I'm in a woman's body. Would you say that that's a disorder, that you have a disorder there?
I would say I have a disorder, an illness, or something that's wrong physiologically or mentally with my body, yes.
The truth is, I'm not a liberal or a conservative. I'm an institutionalist.
The mainstream media almost universally condemn police brutality. Of course, the attitude of the mainstream media represents, as a rule, the consensus of opinion among the most powerful classes in our society as to what is good for the system. What has just been said about theft, graft, and police brutality applies also to issues of discrimination and victimization such as racism, sexism, homophobia, poverty, and sweatshops. All of these are bad for the system. For example, the more black people that feel themselves scorned or excluded, the more likely they are to turn to crime and less likely they are to educate themselves for careers that will make them useful to the system. Modern technology, with its rapid long-distance transportation and distribution of traditional ways of life, has led to a mixing of populations so that nowadays people of different races, nationalities, cultures, and religions have to live and work side by side. If people hate or reject one another on the basis of race, ethnicity, sexual preference, etc., the resulting conflicts interfere with the functioning of the system. So in a nutshell, the system's neatest trick is this. 1. For the sake of its own efficiency and security, the system needs to bring deep and radical social change to match the changed conditions resulting from technological process. 2. The frustration of life under the circumstances imposed by the system leads to rebellious impulses. 3. Rebellious impulses are co-opted by the system in the service of the social change it requires. Activists rebel against the old and outmoded values that are no longer of use to the system, and in favor of the new values that the system needs us to accept. 4. In this way, rebellious impulses, which otherwise might have been dangerous to the system, are given an outlet that is not only harmless to the system, but useful to it. 5. Much of the public resentment resulting from the imposition of social changes is drawn away from the system and its institutions and is directed instead at the radicals who spearhead the social changes. Of course, this trick was not planned in advance by the system's leaders, who are not conscious of having played a trick at all. The way it works is something like this. In deciding what position to take on any issue, the editors, publishers, and owners of the media must consciously or unconsciously balance several factors. They must consider how their readers or viewers will react to what they print or broadcast about the issue. They must consider how their readers or viewers will react to what they print or broadcast about the issue. They must consider how their advertisers, their peers in the media, and other powerful persons will react. And they must consider the effect on the security of the system of what they print or broadcast. These practical considerations will usually outweigh whatever personal feelings they may have about the issue. The personal feelings of the media leaders and their advertisers and other powerful persons are varied. They may be liberal or conservative, religious or atheistic. The only universal common ground among the leaders is their commitment to the system, its security, and its power. Therefore, within the limits imposed by what the public is willing to accept, the political factor determining the attitudes propagated by the media is a rough consensus of opinion among the media leaders and the powerful people as to what is good for the system. Thus, when an editor or other media leader sets out to decide what attitude to take towards a movement or a cause, his first thought is whether the movement includes anything that is good or bad for the system. Maybe he tells himself that his decision is based on moral, philosophical, or religious grounds, but it is an observable fact that in practice the security of the system takes precedence over all other factors in determining the attitude of the media. For example, if the news magazine editor looks at the militia movement, he may or may not sympathize personally with some of its grievances and goals. But he also sees that there is a strong consensus among his advertisers and his peers in the media that the militia movement is potentially dangerous to the system and therefore should be discouraged. Under these circumstances, he knows that his magazine had better take a negative attitude toward the militia movement. The negative attitude of the media presumably is a part of the reason why the militia movement has died down. When the same editor looks at radical feminism, he sees that some of its more extreme solutions would be dangerous to the system, but he also sees that feminism holds much more that is useful to the system. Women's participation in the business and technical world integrates them and their families better into the system. Their talents are of service to the system in business and technical matters. Feminist emphasis on ending domestic abuse and rape also serves the system's needs, since rape and abuse, like other forms of violence, are dangerous to the system.